What's up, everybody? Sports Counterpoints podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today is June 23rd, 2022. I'm GB. Got Brian and Coop on the lines on the video. What's up, brothers?
What's going on?
All right, we're back.
Man, back. Can't call it. So appreciate you guys for checking us out. Check us out on your favorite podcast platform, YouTube, whatever it is. We appreciate the view. Get at us on YouTube. You can find us at Sports Counterpoints under the at NOWSLAPPIN page. That's my page, so we're running it there. You can find all our content there. So, and then also Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, whatever you do. So appreciate you. So today's show we're going to be talking about the NBA Finals, recapping that. We'll talk about the Stanley Cup, what's going on there in the NHL, a little bit about the NBA draft, a little bit about Chef Curry, and then possibly some Live versus PGA talk, kind of depending on time. So let's get into it, man. Let's start it out. So the NBA Finals are done. Warriors parade happened in the city on Monday, I believe. Tons of people out there, plenty of funny clips if you're on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. So they win it all. B, you had said earlier, there's a chance that they could win it all if a few key things happen, and those things happen. So as it's over, we're in that dead zone. NBA is done before NFL. What do you guys think as the finals over? What do you take away from it?
Well, B, you took the Warriors, so you started, man. You won it.
Yeah, well, they did what they needed to do. I mean, they were able to gel as a team. Going into the playoffs, that was a big question mark because Clay really hadn't had a lot of time. Curry was going into it after being hurt for a period of time. Poole was playing at a whole different level at that point, and you had to question about whether Curry was going to continue to come off the bench. And so there's a lot of question marks. They showed that they are what we thought they were, which is true professionals. They found a way to gel. They found a way to play great team defense. Nobody on the team plays individual defense that well anymore. I mean, Curry's always been suspect, but he knows how to play good help defense and get in there and get some steals and disrupt some plays. Draymond is past his man-on-man prime, but he still knows how to make himself a defensive factor, especially in a zone. And Clay clearly just isn't the same man-on defender that he used to be. But he found a way to step it up in moments. The other thing is that obviously he was trying to find his shot and find his rhythm because he hadn't played in a really long time until this season, and he managed to do it at the right times. Now he was not consistent, but he was able to find the right time, step up in big moments, make big plays, give them that third shooter that they needed at some critical moments, and that was huge. Poole showed that he is, he has a lot of potential. I don't know if he's a superstar, but I definitely know that he has all-star potential in the NBA. And it was kind of funny because after the series was over, there was a bunch of guys, Gary Payton, Kevin Looney, were like, we're about to get the bag. So, it'll be interesting to see because there's a lot of people who are going to have their hand out and want more money. And while the owner of the Warriors can afford it, it's still a question of do you want to pay all that money to all these players, especially because they have the ability to keep them and pay, bird rights and things like that. Because one advantage that the Warriors have almost every other team is that all of these players are mostly homegrown. So they do have a lot of extra rights. They can go way over the cap to keep them, but they're going to get into that 2x luxury tax category. So they're going to be, far and away the most expensive team going forward. But anyway, long story short, congratulations to them. They needed to do a lot. This wasn't a given any point in time that they were going to be able to get this far. A lot of people were towards the end were like, oh, of course they were going to win. They were coming back, and this was never ever a given that they were going to bring all this together. Boston looked really strong through a couple of those rounds. They had probably the hardest road through the playoffs of anybody in the playoffs this year. And they are still able to find ways to get back there. I would take Milwaukee from the East next year, but Boston certainly has shown that that they belong in the conversation for finals competitors. Jason, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, Brian, you made some good points. The one point I really like that you made was the whole team defense thing. Because to start my point on the Warriors figured out the Boston Celtics the last 3.5 games of the series. They figured out Boston can't play half court basketball. And so if you notice the last 3 games, or 2 games or whatever, 2 or 3 games, the Boston didn't even break 100. Warriors figured out if you prevent Tatum and you prevent what's the name, Jalen Brown from going to the basket, they're not as effective as basketball players because Jalen Brown is more athlete than basketball players, so he has to go to the basket. When he is relying on those one-on-one jump shots, it's not good. And Tatum needs an overall game for him to have a big game, which means go to the basket, maybe shoot a couple threes or whatever. And the Warriors pretty much, and with Wiggins' help, but the Warriors as a team just held Tatum just to a lot of jump shots. Also, you know, Curry is just, I said before the series started, he's was on a tear against Boston. He was averaging 35 a game. But if you don't count the game, he got hurt. But his last 6 games, he was already averaging over 35 a game against Boston. So he pretty much owns them. And he averaged over 30 in this series. I'm not one of those people that feel he needed an MVP to validate, how great he is or how good he is as a player or a shooter. I think that's nonsense, but he got his MVP. I guess that's good. Maybe it should have been 2, should have got the first one. But to me, I think this team, as you said, Boston, as you said, Brian, they had to overcome a lot this year. And to me, this is their most impressive championship because the first year they by far and away had the best bench in the league. I mean, their guys on their bench could start for the teams and they had Durant. So it looked a little bit easy. But this one, they had to sort of overcome some obstacles and they all got through. So it was impressive. Also Wiggins. A lot of people talking about Wiggins and Wiggins' performance. He averaged 18 and 9 on 45% shooting in the finals, and his performance didn't surprise me. And the reason why is Wiggins struggles with consistent scoring. If you have to ask him to score 24, 25 a game, that's not his forte. But he can do all the other things. He can rebound, he can defend, he can do other things to help a team out. It helps that he's not a number 1 or a number 2 on this team. As a number 3 or a number 4 option, he's great. If you have him as a number 1, number 2, that's a little bit too much responsibility. He can't handle. He's shown he really can't handle that. But in the position he is with the Warriors, it was great. So it was good, to see him have some good games. And like you said in the last podcast, he'll never be labeled as a quote unquote bust. On the flip side for Boston, I mean, watching this series, they need a ball handler. It made me see why they went after Kyrie and why they went after Kemba, because besides Tatum, they don't have anybody else that can initiate offense, and Kyrie can do that, but Kyrie's just a horrible fit chemistry wise. So they went after Kemba, who subsequently got traded today to Detroit, but Kemba's knees is done, so he didn't really help as well. It also didn't help that the Boston Celtics gave the Warriors 97 extra possessions during the series from all those turnovers. And it's actually still amazing to me that Tatum has over 100 turnovers in 24 playoff games. That's over 5 a game. That's a ridiculous amount. But like I said, congratulations to the Warriors. Lastly, I guess the last point I want to make is I've never liked that 1970s NFL slogan, defense wins championship, because everybody talked about Boston's defense. And I said coming into the series, I was shaky about Boston coming out of Miami series because Milwaukee has 1 score, Miami has 1 score, and Brooklyn just played one-on-one basketball. The Warriors have 3 guys who can fill it up. Now, I know Jordan Poole only averaged 13 points a game in the series, but he still has the ability to put up 30, just like Clay and Curry, and that constant motion offense. And it's going to be hard for Boston to defend. And, I've got to give it up for Kerr, the coaching staff. They figured out some things, and, Curry balled out, and the rest of the Warriors did what they had to do. And they won the series, like you said. They did what they had to do, and they won it.
I wanted to make 2 points that you kind of mentioned that I forgot to say. One is that Wiggins arrived, and you're 100% right in that 3rd or 4th spot. He is outstanding. His all-around game, particularly his ability to play man defense on the most difficult players on the other team and really shut them down. I mean, he gave Tatum fits. Was a huge part, and I didn't say that earlier. The other thing is that without trying, Kerr proved he might be the best coach of our generation. And that's saying a lot. And the reason for that is when Kerr got sick, that team, as good as they are, struggled. He came back, they ran on to a championship. Nothing changed between the time that he was sick and had to stay home. Mike Brown is a very good coach and has an opportunity to go and coach someplace else. But Kerr, the minute he got back, he got that team on track. He constantly made in-game adjustments. I mean, they were amazing in the third quarter. That is coaching. And so, that was something else that stood out that I didn't mention earlier.
Yeah, three things that people don't understand about NBA coaching. Number one, this Phil Jackson was great at this, and it looks like Curry is as well. You got to manage egos. You got to be able to make adjustments, and you have to have respect of players. If we don't have all three of those things, it's going to be tough. Managing egos, these guys make millions of dollars. They're stars. They got rings. They got championships, yada, yada, yada. You got to get their respect. You got to manage all those egos. You got to make them feel like the man, but yet still know that you're in charge or whatever. So, yeah, I'm with you on Kerr, man. Kerr is a really good coach. And I know people are going to say, just like with Phil Jackson, oh, man, he had Jordan and Kobe and he got Curry. It's more than that. It's a whole lot more than that. That makes it even more difficult, actually. It makes it more difficult, to be honest with you.
He proved it. I mean, like I said, Mike Brown was coaching for a couple of games, and the offense wasn't as good. The adjustments weren't there. And this is not a slight on Mike Brown. This is a hey, take a look at how good Kerr is, because the minute he got back, they hit their stride. They went on to win more games.
What do you think? I was just going to say, when Luke Walton did it, they won like 20 or something in a row, but I think he had Durant, right?
Yeah, he had Durant back on that team. And I still don't think Luke Walton's a bad coach. I
know you don't.
Yeah, I think Kerr has shown, anytime you start getting the guys on your staff head coaching jobs, I mean, that's going to speak to the organization that you're creating, what you're doing. I thought the Warriors played good ball. It was still, I think, a very boring finals in terms of there was too many blowouts in the beginning, but the last few games the middle games were okay. The last game was another blowout once the Warriors got running, but that's what good teams do. So, nothing but respect to the team. They did their thing. Curry continues to be Chef Curry and show that he's, one of those dudes. And it was great to watch. We'll see what Boston does. I hear people like, oh, they'll be back next year. I'm like, man, it's a little tougher than that, because you're going to need to make a few improvements that you might be able to, but also can you, is Al Horford coming back? Can you rely on him to do what he did? What's going to happen with the salaries? Like, stuff changes. Additionally, with the Warriors, I was looking at some of their contracts, and most of these guys are signed for the next year or two at least. Yeah. So it's not like they have to make these tough decisions beyond Wiggins. I think Wiggins got 33. It was 30. I think 33 this year. And he's a free agent now, but I think Poole has 2 more years. Curry signed. Clay has 1 more year. Draymond has 1 more year. So, you'll have a decision to make, but, it's not something that they can look at kind of signing some of these young guys. I think GP the second was making like 1.9. So, his marketability is going to be the highest it's going to be. But, I'm wondering if he tries to go and get the money somewhere, but,
well, remember that they have a lot of bird rights, because those are players that all kind of were there.
Yeah.
And so they have an opportunity to kind of go above and beyond. And the reality of it is the guy that they have to figure out what to do with the money that they're paying him is Draymond.
Sure.
Probably, if they can figure out a way to fit it in next year, I think even Draymond knows that he's going to become a veteran minimum guy for the finish of his career to be able to stay with winning teams.
Stay with his boys, yeah. And he's making 25 a year. It's less than other guys.
Right now. Yeah, well, that's just because the other 3 guys are the highest paid players in the league, right? Curry and so on and so forth. But yeah, you're 100% right. The Popovich, what's interesting about Kerr is that he comes from both coaching trees. Right. He because of his time with Phil Jackson, he's kind of he says his philosophy has a lot to do with Phil Jackson. And because of his time with Greg Popovich, he has a style that really seems a lot like Greg Popovich. He's a very unique individual in that respect, that he is kind of from both of those trees. And as a result, he's probably the best current coach by far, and maybe end up being historically one of the all-time great coaches. And I also
great point.
I was gonna say I hella like him a lot
Yeah.
for who he is.
Seems like a good guy. Definitely.
Yeah,
It's a good point.
I know. I didn't know that the Warriors have 7 championships as a franchise. They're third
They're third
behind the
now.
Lakers and Celtics. I did not know
Nice.
that.
I didn't know that till right now.
Got 7, yeah.
Also, shout out to the Lakers and Celtics for being that far ahead. That's crazy.
Well, the
But you
Celtics
had all
got
them
ahead in
years.
the
I know.
50s.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and
I
that's
know.
one thing about the Celtics. I'm sorry, Celtic fans. It's like they think they're, I guess, a dynasty, but they've only had one championship the last 35 years. That sort of dynasty was like built
Yeah,
50, 60 years ago.
Bill Russell.
That's when it was built. Since then, you're not, they're not a free agent destination. They're not all that like they think they are. They're pretty much living off 60 years ago when
Yeah.
they won, 11 titles with, 2 teams in the league.
Yeah, Bill Russell.
Yeah, and they had half
Cozy and them boys. Yeah.
right, and then and they had half pretty much the Hall of Fame on their team. I think all those players, like 8 of them, are in the Hall of Fame. So
Yeah.
it's like,
It's a good point.
yeah,
I never think
yeah.
about that.
The Lakers have
Lakers-
won consistently throughout
Yeah.
decades. Boston hasn't. So, but yeah, shout out to the Warriors for those 7 titles as well. So,
That's dope.
Brian, I got to ask the question, man, because I've been hearing it all week. Who's on your Mount Rushmore? Your top 4 players on your Mount Rushmore, and is Curry on it? Jelani, this is for you. We're doing this segment for you. Okay, so
I told you guys earlier when we were talking about this piece. I think it's ridiculous to even think about Curry as a top 4 guy. I mean, it's just silly. And I really, really like Stephen Curry.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a knock on Stephen Curry. He is nowhere near the conversation of a top 4 in the NBA history.
No.
Now, if you want the people that I would probably put there, it'll probably be Magic, Kareem, Jordan, and I will say Kobe. You could easily argue that he falls to 5th, and there's some other people like a Tim Duncan. But there's another angle to it where if you wanted to argue Mount Rushmore isn't supposed to be the 4 greatest presidents that were ever there. Right. It was supposed to be the 4 presidents who changed the way the United States worked throughout their times, right? So it's the first president,
yep,
right? Their 3rd president, the president who did the most, and Teddy, right? And so it was more of an impact. So no matter what, Magic's on there.
Yeah.
Period. You could argue that that Kareem is on there. He's has the most points. Like those two. There's no question there.
Right.
You could say Jordan, he's the best player, and he took the mantle from Magic and made the NBA, a mainstay from there. And then from there, you're trying to find who that other guy is, and it's probably someone like a Bill Russell. It could be a Jerry West. You could argue that spot goes to someone who has more of an impact on the game as opposed to being the best player in the game. Yep. No matter what, Curry ain't on it. And that's again, not a knock on him. Yeah. That is just, we're talking about a different conversation than one. He is definitely not, by the way, I think someone in our group or whatever was trying to say he might be one of the best point guard ever. That's lunacy. That's Magic hands down.
Yeah.
If you want to say he's top 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, there's debates you can make. But anybody who tries to say that Magic Johnson is not the best point guard in the NBA is not worth listening to past the moment they say it, because they clearly don't understand that.
People who played with, against, and never played at all with or against him said he's the best ever. It's not even a conversation. But the reason why I have Magic and Isaiah over Curry, I love Curry, great shooter, but they had to do more. They had to assist. They had to get others involved. They were the emotional leader, whereas Steph Curry isn't the emotional leader Draymond is. So they have a lot more responsibility. So I kind of put them above Curry. But my Mount Rushmore is Kareem. I don't know why he's not mentioned as one of the greatest player, if not the greatest player ever. All of his stats blow everybody away, including Jordan's, except assists. Magic, best point guard ever, best leader of men ever. Not going to dispute that. I put Michael Jordan on there because he made the game global. And the reason why I have LeBron as the 4th is because he made players feel comfortable within themselves to take control of their career. I look at him as the mobility guy. Because I don't think Durant ever would have went to the Warriors if LeBron didn't go to the Heat first. I don't think Durant's the type of person to take that heat. And so he's the mobility guy. Like, take advantage of your career. Get your money. If you want to play with your friends, go do it. So what? You know what I mean? You only have a certain amount of time to play.
Nice.
So do your thing. And so, so I have LeBron there. Now, On my second team, real quick, I'm not going to do a lot of explanation, but I got Curry on it. I got Bill Russell. I just love the man that Bill Russell was and is, man. Curry's on there. I got Kobe on there, greatest offensive player I've ever seen in my life, and I have Larry Bird on there too, as well. But not going to go into all that. But that's my second Mount Rushmore. It was hard for me not to have Tim Duncan on there, but I
Right.
just think the impact of those four guys is just a little bit greater, especially Bill Russell.
That was deep.
Yeah, I think it makes what all the things that you said, even including the second team, make a whole lot of sense. And the reason that you mentioned for Duncan, Duncan is by far the best power forward who ever
Right.
played, and it's not even really close.
Right.
He's one of the best players ever played. But when you're talking about impact, the way that he did it, his impact. This again, it's not a knock on him. He was quiet. He went and he did his job, and he did it the best that anybody was going to do it at that point in time.
Right.
He made the playoffs every single time he every season he played. He was just outstanding in so many different ways, but his impact wasn't such as magnificent as other players because his whole style was to do it quietly and just get the job done.
Go home. Yeah, no,
Bill Belichick would have loved him.
Right. Yeah. I think you guys made good points. One, F the whole Mount Rushmore idea just because of, some of the history of the presidents who were on there. There's slave owner on there. There's also that's native land that was stolen. So I get it. I'm gonna throw that little political piece out there. But top four, I get the idea of it and I like the idea. For me, I have Bill Russell for all the reasons you said, because of what he meant to the game. Also coaching in Boston, winning 11. Bill Russell. I got Magic, obviously. I had Jordan, I had Kobe. And that was just like, and I mean, we all kind of said the same thing. And there's the other reason for people, I can understand why you'd say Curry if you're watching the game currently in the vacuum, especially if you're younger. Like, I definitely get it. I'm thankful enough that I did get to see Jordan play, like on live games and also games that my dad taped. I got to see Magic play. I saw Larry play. I saw Kobe's whole career, saw LeBron's whole career. I didn't get to see Bill Russell like that, but Pops would split me up on games. We were watching older games. So I definitely get why people say that. But when you think about the history of the league, there's so many players you'd have to go over before you get to Curry that have also, I mean, we didn't even say Shaq. And I think Shaq's impact on the game was massive, but I understand why he's not on there. But I'd have to put him over Curry. I'd have to put other guys. Not that Curry isn't amazing, because dude is amazing. And he has changed the game as it's currently seen. I see when people play the Warriors, and I kept screaming at the TV this whole finals, why are y'all shooting so many threes?
Yeah.
But it's the nature of the game. So I do give him credit. Dude's shooting ability is phenomenal. You've seen his warm-ups. He shoot from the tunnel. He shoot from outside. He shoot from under the basket. Like, dude is phenomenal, and I love watching him. Most exciting player, I would say, to watch. Like, definitely the main ticket in the league right now, but that's my four. And I still like the question.
Yeah, 2 quick points on Shaq, man. Shaq could have been the greatest player ever if he actually took the game seriously, like Kobe. And Kobe said that. He said
tried numerous times.
Yeah, he can be the best player, but he didn't take the game seriously. And with Curry, man, it's like when I see these young guys trying to be like him, trying to play like him, I mean, they just don't understand to dribble towards your left and shoot over somebody 6'10" that's jumping at you and just dead eye shoot a 3-pointer. That is so damn difficult to, and you have to be strong to do it. Curry, people don't realize you have to be strong to just flick your wrist and make those, like you said, from the tunnel shots. That's not easy to do. Yeah. It's like, so when he's one of a kind. But when we grew up, it was Jordan. People try to be like Jordan. It's just like, dude, he's just on another planet.
Jordan worked crazy hard.
Yeah, right.
And he was crazy with the mid-range. Jordan could do everything, but deadly with the mid-range. Dead at the cup. Curry's been shooting them NBA threes since he was like 4.
Right.
And you got to remember the practice. How many shots you think he's probably shot? Hundreds of thousands. You know what I'm saying? At the very least.
Yeah.
High hundreds of thousands, millions. Right. You know what I mean? So it's not. So nothing. Never a slight to Curry. I think dude's phenomenal. And been super exciting to watch. It's more understanding the history of the game and the amount of players who've put and built the game that it's tough to, Curry's maybe in the future, he might win some more, but right now you're in the current process. It's hard to say that. So yeah, word, man. I think it's a good combo, and I'm glad you brought it up, Coop. Real quick, you guys got the NBA draft is still occurring right now. Y'all got any thoughts on anything? I mean, I think for me, I saw that my biggest 2 were Mathurian from Arizona went to where'd he go? was just looking at it. I was excited to see that he went to Indiana. I don't know what that's going to do for the team, but I loved watching that young dude play during the tourney. And then their center, Koloko, went to Toronto. Both those dudes is
Yeah.
balling. So I'm very curious to see what they do. But just real quick, I know none of us really watched the draft. I kind of got to just see what you do in the league. It's hard to tell now, but you guys got any quick thoughts?
I have some thoughts. So it had been written all over everything, including ESPN, that Jabari Smith was going to be the number one pick, and that it was a given. So when Paolo Banchero got the first, he was actually projected to be the third pick. When he got the nod for the first pick, that was surprising. Jabari Smith, he was part of a team that won a national championship. I'm sorry, not national championship, but had gone far and played really well. And I was surprised by that. Banchero had been talked about as the one who is most ready to contribute immediately. He comes out of Duke. He's a very polished player. So that was a little bit surprising. The other thing that was kind of that it's not surprising because we all knew this was going to happen. But Chet Holmgren, who everyone is kind of talking about as being the next KD and saying he's wiry frame, and I'm not. Hey, I don't agree with this.
That's
I'm
crazy.
telling you what other crazy. And then he ends up going to OKC, being kind of that long, lanky guy who can shoot threes and dribble and all that stuff. I don't think he's even a poor man's KD.
That's tough.
I am not convinced that his game is real. But and I think that he is going, KD's skill set was so unique, and he was way better in college than Chet was in college. And I mean, you saw KD play, and he was a man amongst boys. He just happened to play on a Texas team that had nobody. But anyways, I don't believe in that pick, but I did think it was interesting that of all the people who were kind of nailed down to picking Chet, it was OKC, and they did it with visions of KD in their mind. Some other things that I thought were kind of were amusing for those of you who actually got to watch the draft, watching Stephen A. just lose his mind as the folks were. Oh wow, something interesting just happened. When these folks were sitting there trying to talk about the Knicks, he's a big Knicks fan. They traded all their picks away, and he was just losing his mind on camera. It was not only embarrassing but just hard to watch. And then just so everyone knows, the thing that just happened that was really interesting is Isaiah Mobley just got drafted by Cleveland. So he's going to play for the same team as his brother. Shout out to Derek, who I am willing to bet in the next 5 minutes that we're on this podcast will text me about it because he had taught those kids when they were younger.
Nice. That's going to be interesting. That's cool. Word, yeah. Coop, what you think, man? You seen anything about it?
So I haven't watched an NBA draft in a decade. I believe the last draft that I watched was in 2012. Yeah, when Anthony Davis was drafted number 1. But I did look at the results, and I'm 100% with you on Chet Walker. I don't see it. Kevin Durant was a natural scorer in Texas, and you knew he was going to be a natural scorer in the NBA. He really didn't have any bust potential, even though he was drafted number 2 behind Greg Oden. You just knew he was going to come in the league and kill it. And plus, he's one of the 4 NBA superstars right now. There's only 4. Chet Walker's never going to be one of those guys. So I don't see it. But as far as just looking at all these guys, I have to be honest with you. I only know about 2 of them as I'm scrolling through the list. And of course, since I'm a Laker fan, I'm interested to seeing what Max Christie can do for us. Never heard of him until today, but he came from a decent program and decent coaching with Tom Izzo, Michigan State. So we'll see what happens. But other than that, I don't really have any other thoughts because I'm just not high on these guys only playing 4 months in college and then coming into the NBA. It's going to take them a while to make some sort of impact, but I'm sure there'll probably be like 1 guy or 2 that can play in this draft. I just don't know who.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that whole Lakers pick. I find it hard to believe that they traded into the draft from having no picks at all to get Max Christie. And so I'm wondering if there's not going to be something that we'll hear later on where they thought that some player was going to fall. They thought that maybe they'll get whatever, Jalen Williams or, whatever, one of these other guys that they thought might fall, who were at the end, maybe even a Peyton Watson from UCLA. But because Max Christie is a solid player. He's supposed to have good work, but he averaged 9 points. He's not someone that you trade into a draft to get. He's someone that you value draft because you have a pick in the second round, and you'll let him come to camp. But when you're a team that has no draft pick, who has a ton of cap issues, when you trade back into the draft, it is usually because you think that there's a specific player that can help your team right now. And I don't know how Max Christie fits that bill. I don't know him well enough. I'm not saying I know that the kid is good or bad or anything.
Right.
I'm just saying usually when you trade back into a draft, you're trading back into a draft with a specific person in mind. And I just find it weird that that's the guy that they went for.
Yeah, I don't trust any draft picks in the Genie Bus era. But we're a team who's not been to the playoffs 7 out of the last 9 years, so I don't trust any draft picks.
Well,
so you're probably right.
We trade away. That's because we trade away our draft, our drafted players. We've drafted some talent. I don't know that the draft picks have been the problem. I think the team management and the coaching. Again, I don't have anything against our coach last year, but our coaching has been a little suspect. Mainly, I also think that the worst GM in basketball happens to be our small forward, LeBron James.
All right, fair enough.
But he's won a title though as a GM before though. In Cleveland. Yeah.
Multiple. He won one here too.
Yeah, he won one here. Yeah.
Word. All right, so we'll see what happens because I'm with you, Coop, especially on draft picks. One, I already know how you feel about draft picks in general, but definitely in this case, at least in football, you play a few years. Dude is, you're fresh off of a freshman year with a few months in the game. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So beyond that, bro, this switching up to the Stanley Cup, man. Hockey's going crazy. You guys called it, like, man, Colorado's getting busy. They're playing some good games. What have you guys thought about the Stanley Cup so far?
Well, I know I picked Tampa Bay, but like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Colorado won because Colorado, they're just good. I mean, they came out one game with 7-0. I mean, just thrashed Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's not a bad team, but Colorado's making Tampa Bay look like an average team. But that shows how good Colorado is because Tampa Bay is a really good team. That overtime game was a great game. Glenn, I don't know how much you watched this series.
Overtime.
Okay, yeah, but it's been even though it's 3-1 now, so Colorado might wrap it up at home in a couple of days, but it's been a good series. I still recommend, even though it's 3-1, I still recommend people to watch the rest of the series. B, I know you had Colorado sitting pretty right now. What you think about the Stanley Cup Finals?
So first of all, it has been super exciting. This is the kind of playoffs. It doesn't matter what sport you're watching. This keeps your attention. Every single one of the games, including the 7-0 thrashing, was very, very exciting to watch. Very, very interesting to watch. I think that the 7 goals scored is great, but I think the keeping them to 0 is the more of the statement in that game. And I think that obviously Tampa Bay needed to find a way to win that game in overtime. The way that game ended yesterday was pretty interesting because they didn't even know it was a goal. Yeah. It was like they flipped the shot, it goes in, and they're like, "Is that under the net or over the net?"
Right.
Oh, by the way, the game is over. But anyways, look, it's been super exciting. I am not an expert in hockey, but what I did notice before when we made the picks is that while Tampa Bay is going for a three-peat and they're an outstanding team and they absolutely deserve to be there, and I think that it actually says a lot for hockey when your previous champion is the one that is in the finals, and in this case, a new team is kind of being anointed, a new younger team is being anointed and getting to that next level, like the Colorado Avalanche, and it's just been fun to watch. Like I don't know a whole lot about hockey. But I follow it. I enjoy the excitement of it. I've talked to some buddies who are much more knowledgeable about hockey than I am. I will say that also at the same time, I was surprised that Connor McDavid didn't win the MVP. He had more total points in the season. Didn't have as many goals as the guy he wanted. And watching him earlier in the playoffs, he was incredible. So I was surprised. I don't know the other guy that well. I just saw where he was in the standings and points and all that stuff. I was surprised when he didn't win it, and asked, and some people were like, "Oh no, that guy probably deserved it." But anyways, it's been exciting. I mean, we're in that lull right now, except for there's no lull yet, because I'm looking forward to watching the game tomorrow, and seeing Friday night, somewhat primetime game. It starts at 5. To possibly see a championship won.
Yeah,
GB?
Man, I got to see a bit of most of the games. Definitely that overtime last night was phenomenal. Just the bit I saw, the passing, the intensity. It's like great hockey. So whether you're into the game or not, it's really fun to watch. That pass to set up that goal was amazing. Like dead on the stick. Like, man, that pass was crazy. I knew as soon as he passed it, like, oh, this is a goal, because it was just too nice of a pass. Got down there and flipped it right under the goalie's wing, right under the chicken wing. Man, it was crazy. It was really good. So I'd suggest people watch it. I just saw the Warriors pick 2. They pick a center from UConn. Dude's probably going to be a damn all-star the way the damn Warriors scouting.
Oh, that's interesting, because they
does.
must not believe in Wiseman. He plays center, and they just drafted him last year. So
no, dude's a guard.
Up there.
This dude's a guard.
Therese Martin's a guard. Oh, I thought you said center. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, senior.
Oh, senior. Okay.
So they actually got someone seasoned.
Oh, damn.
Play, right.
Senior. Okay.
21.
Okay. That's like their MO though.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the kind of picks you make in a second round. Like that's when you take your senior players. That's when you take these guys who can be a guy on the bench next year. To me, it sounds like they're worried about keeping someone like a Gary Payton, because I was looking a little while ago. Gary Payton, they don't have bird rights for.
No.
They do have him for Kevin Looney. So they got to give him real money. So it sounds like you're looking for guards who can come in and make an impact late. I don't know, the guy might be, but if he turns out to be a 3-and-D player, it seems to me that the front office is making a statement about what they think their future with Gary Payton Jr. is. I don't think that they have anything other than respect for him, but he's a guy who could clearly go get more than the 1.7 million that he's making.
Exactly.
Right
now. Yeah. I believe the Warriors have the highest payroll in the
by a lot. It's not even really close.
Yeah, I think if you draft and develop players, I don't think the salary cap should really apply to you. That's just me personally, because you drafted them, you developed them, you keep them, you want to pay them. That's your business. You know what I mean? So, but that's another subject. Yep.
Word. So last thing we had on the docket was still and putting some golf in here, which I like. We're actually getting well rounded on this show. So not just basketball and football, but Live versus the PGA still going on. So the PGA announced that they're going to do 8 events with a $20 million prize at the top. And then the PGA commissioner, or however it goes, president, whatever it is, came out and said, we're all for healthy competition, but this isn't it. Like Live isn't it. So they're taking shots at each other. If you're the Live golf guys, I think what you're trying to do is working in terms of the publicity and whatnot. I don't know if it's going to make them seem like nice guys, you know what I mean, if for the publicity campaign, but it's definitely working on that end. PGA is definitely taking note, and some more guys have signed on to Live. So what are you kind of thinking about this, Brian?
Well, B, I'm sorry, before you go, B, I found out something. The PGA Tour does not run the major golf tournaments. They don't run the Masters. They don't run the British.
Well, yeah. I mean, it all depends on which one, right? The PGA Tour runs those things, but like the U.S. Open is run by the USGA.
Right.
The British Open is run, by the organization that's out there that only does that.
Right.
The Masters is run by the Masters.
Right.
Their own tournament.
Exactly. So before you go, so I want you to answer this, because I know a lot more about golf than I do. What power does the PGA have? These guys can still play in these major tournaments and go and Live. So what's their power?
Oh, well, because there's every other tournament. You're talking about five events.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The US
PGA
Open,
Championship,
the Open, the Open, the PGA Championship they can't play in the PGA Championship.
Right, yeah.
And the Masters, those are run by independent organizations.
Right.
But everything else is generally a PGA event, or affiliated with the PGA. And then what is it? The Scottish Open came out today and said that they won't let the live golfers play.
Mm.
And that's usually considered the warm up for the Open.
Yep.
But anyway, so they have a lot of power. But look, they're going to fight a losing battle. Here's the thing. Live Golf has made it clear. They're playing with FU money. They're just throwing it around. Now they've got Brooks Koepka, who switched over after Bryson DeChambeau, Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson. And these are Brooks Koepka is a really good golfer who plays really well in major tournaments. And he is clearly going for money, right? And playing most of these other guys who are in there into the prime. Glenn, you mentioned that you thought that the live golf strategy for publicity is working. There's been a lot of chat around it, but again, they haven't gotten viewership yet.
Sure.
Now we'll see if that translates next weekend to getting viewership. I do think that getting Brooks Koepka is a get because he's someone who can possibly compete towards the top of it. I think Brooks knows that. He's looking at the lineup that they have over there, and they're like, yeah, that's $2.5 million a week I can make. And their team money and then I'm sure he got the same kind of hundreds of millions of dollars in guaranteed money that Dustin Johnson and other guys had. There's an article on golf.com from like this nobody. His name is Pearson Coody, who's the grandson of Masters champion Carlos Coody. So he got recruited. And he actually turned down a multi-million-dollar deal. This is a guy who's not even on the PGA. He's still on the they call it the Corn Ferry Tour right now, the minor league kind of the PGA. And he was even thrown multi-millions of dollars to go to live golf. He ultimately decided he didn't want to do it. They are just throwing money everywhere. So when the PGA commissioner says, and I'm not necessarily taking a side, but I understand the argument that, look, they're not really a competing tour. It would be like saying that the Washington Generals and the Harlem Globetrotters are competing against the NBA, right? They're barnstorming. They're an exhibition game. They're playing 3 rounds. There's no cut. Pretty much everybody makes a ton of money, and that's all wonderful. But that is a golf exhibition more than it is the U.S. Open, where you have 146 golfers that gets cut down to like 40 something on the most difficult stages in the world. Whereas the live golf courses so far, and the ones that are planned, other than I think Trump's Doral, are places that Glenn and I would throw the $150 to go play. They're really nice courses, accessible to most people. So anyways, it'll be interesting to see what happens next week. I think I was surprised by Brooks going. I'm loving Rory taking shots at all these guys. When Brooks moved over, he said, "Oh, I see how some people are going to be big hypocrites now, and say that they don't want to stoop down to the level of those live golfers, and then they go when someone writes them a big check."
I'm about to say.
So yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, it will take you. There's not 8 tournaments that you can play in the PGA that will make you anywhere near as much money as you will likely make in the 8 there, and all the other money that they get.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of sponsorships, because that's how PGA golfers have made their money. Phil Mickelson is one of the highest paid athletes ever because of sponsorships, not because of what he made on the golf course. Tiger Woods, same exact thing, right? He only made $131 million on a golf course. He's a billionaire. And there are tons and tons of folks who have made more money from endorsements than they did on a golf course. And these live golfer folks are likely going to lose most of them. Most of their, Bryson's already lost most of his big ones. I don't think Brooks had that many. Phil is it was a no-brainer for him. He had already lost all of them because he opened his big mouth.
Yeah, the money they're going to get is going to cover that.
Will it cover all of that? I mean, look at Phil Mickelson's career. He's worth 700 million.
Crazy.
He in his shoes, it made sense. He was not going to get $200 million from endorsements anymore because he opened his big mouth. He was not going to win $200 million worth of PGA.
Yeah, he's at the end.
He's towards the end of his career. But for guys like Dustin Johnson and for Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, these were people who could earn lots of money from endorsements, and we're not at the end of their careers, and they sign one. So that's just something to watch. I don't even know that I'm going to watch the Live Golf next weekend. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I won't just look up. If they're not even on ESPN, you have to go to livegolf.com to look at the standings. I'm not sure that I might not look at the golf standings on Saturday at 3 p.m. and see if it's worth 15 minutes of my time. Like, that's about the extent of it.
Yeah, no, I think everything you said is spot on. To my point, if you're going to give me 200 million, and you're, Koepka and those guys, it's one thing to say I might get endorsements and I probably could sign with Tag Heuer and whoever. It's another thing to say, hey, bro, here's 200. Like, bird in the hand, you know what I'm saying? A lot of birds. So I'll give him that. But Chase Koepka, Brooks' brother, also plays on the Live Tour, which I just read. And then to your point earlier, you made a point last week about, are they even really trying to get viewership or just get chatter? Because they have so much money. Like, it's not like they need to turn this around to be profitable in hopes of making it something. You got the bread. So it's just might be, do your publicity tour to try and take away from the human rights violations and get people talking about it, and just go from there. You don't really need viewers.
Yeah. The goal of getting people to ignore the human rights issues has failed so far. Now, I'm not saying it won't go down, because a whole bunch, including the 9/11 organizations, have come out and put more focus on trying to draw attention to the human rights violations that happen in Saudi Arabia right now. They might get bored of that. The Saudi Arabian money is held a lot longer than the attention spans of most activists, unfortunately. And so, we'll have to see if that works. But so far, for every time that someone talks about Live Golf, there's 10 articles that come out about the civil right, the rights violations. And so I don't know that they've gotten the win there just yet. But again, they're playing with FU money, so they have time to wait.
Plus, it's still early. Something can happen in sports, and then people will have their attention diverted. That's what usually happens. Something happens, and the attention gets diverted, and nobody really thinks about it no more. So, we'll see.
Nice word, man. I think this is a good show. I really enjoyed always doing the show with you both. I like that it was a really well-rounded show too. So thank you guys, man, for letting me be a part of this. I know it's our show together, but still, it's good to be a part of. So love you guys. Last segment, the minute to win it. If either of you guys got something, go ahead. Otherwise, mine's quick.
Yeah, mine's real quick too. I'll go. I was watching all these people, chasing the Warriors, I guess, and during the Warriors parade, chasing the whatever it is that they're in. And I was having a conversation. I gotta give a shout out to my boy Harris, Barbara Harris, man. It's just like, if people put that kind of energy in chasing their own dreams, then maybe, it's not bad to celebrate other people, but maybe you can, celebrate yourself as well, or be celebrated if you took that kind of energy that you give your sports team and put it in yourself to accomplish something good or great. So that's the only thing I want to say. Just, put effort in yourself as well, even though we do our sports teams the same way, but still put effort in yourselves to make something good or great of yourself. That's all.
Nice. B?
Only thing I would say is that if you're a person who's been following what's going on with the Supreme Court, one thing that is starting to be said, but I'll jump out there and say something that may seem a little wild. Clarence Thomas needs to resign as a Supreme Court justice. His wife now has been found, proven, and talked about as being one of the planners of what happened in January 6th. You cannot say that you're an impartial judge of the highest at the highest level in our organization while you're married to someone who's planning the overthrow of our government. It's disgusting. It's sick. And Clarence Thomas, who's more famous for not saying anything as part of being part of the Supreme Court justice needs to get out and needs to resign, and people need to start putting pressure on him to do so. And this just shows that we have the reason that the Supreme Court is not beholden to the executive branch or Congress, congressional branch, is because we wanted to have checks and balances at the highest level. But the problem is there's no checks and balances on the power of our Supreme Court, and right now we're witnessing the problem with that lack of checks and balances, because there's just all the other stuff that's going on. Like, I don't like Alito. I don't like all these conservative and what they're doing with Roe versus Wade, but it's an atrocity to have somebody who was sitting in the same house with somebody who was planning the overthrow and assassination of a sitting vice president, and they're sitting on our Supreme Court. That's a real issue.
Oh, the Clarence Thomas record has been real
Trash.
tragic for a long time.
He got in right after he did some sexual assault, just like the other guy. I mean,
Yeah, trash.
I didn't know he was still a Supreme Court justice. He was the one that was in that room with the cocaine, right?
Are you talking about you talking about Marion Barry, bro?
Oh, my bad.
You talking about Marion Barry, man.
My bad.
Marion Barry I think he did a lot of good before that. But anyway,
Yeah.
Clarence Thomas has been known as not being that dude for years.
Anita
and years
Hill
and years.
is the problem.
He's trash. So I'm with you. But once you're Supreme Court justice, you're on there, Coop. So until you pass. So not wishing death upon anybody. So I'm not going there. I'm with the Resign. Thanks for not saying anything, Brian. I can see your face on camera. So for me, what I'm gonna say is, if you guys haven't seen Who We Are by Jeffrey Robinson on Netflix, fantastic watch. It's really chronicling like anti-blackness and racism in America from kind of slavery to now. But he uses personal anecdotes. He uses historical footage, lectures, conversations and speeches from presidents at the time, et cetera, to really kind of put it in focus. And I think it's an important watch for everybody, not just Black people, but everybody, to kind of see where we came from and how we're not that far away from it in a lot of cases. So there's still a lot of work to be done there, with racism, with misogyny, with sexism, with everything. But it's a really good watch, really powerful. So that's my only recommendation. It's called Who We Are on Netflix. Beyond that, I hope everybody's doing well. Stay healthy. Take care of your families. We appreciate you for listening. We'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.